Hey guys, it's Tony Kopantoa, and something that I've wanted to talk about is another reason why people abandon their passion projects, or why they abandon a passion project. Now, there's a lot of good, legit reasons why people abandon a project. One of them is a lack of motivation, or they're just getting tired of it. Part of it is realizing that the project itself is way too ambitious, your priorities are set on other things, and your time is very limited. Maybe the project is causing you more grief than usual. And I think these are all super valid reasons why people ditch a passion project that they start. You also have to remember that when you're working on your own passion project or your own personal project, it's quite a one-sided relationship. You're investing so much more into this thing that's not really paying you back. So no one really talks about this, but one of the main reasons that we abandon our personal projects is that we simply grow out of it. So I remember when I finished that Dusk's Flight project that took me years because I procrastinated a lot, I kept changing my mind on it, I kept feeling indifferent about it. And by the time I finished it, I made a video talking about why it took so long and all of these hurdles that I just mentioned. And someone left a comment that resonated with me so well, which is that we mature way faster than the projects that we're working with. Like, let's say you're working on this project and 6 months goes by, maybe a year goes by, and this project is not yet finished, but you're still working on it. So much about you has changed. Your point of view has changed, your priorities have changed, like your outlook has changed. And that can affect your overall perspective, your goals, your overall purpose on making this project. You start thinking about all these new things that resonate with you at the current time, that matches with your current point of view. And thinking like that starts to pull you away from your current project. And in some cases will make you forget why you are working on this project in the first place. So let's say I'm a high school kid, for example, and I remember when I was in high school, things that were edgy and angsty really appealed to me. And I thought it was cool. So all the work that I was producing around that time as a teen, it really reflected that. And if I were to look at myself now doing that stuff, I would cringe at myself. But it's not really just about aesthetics or the stuff or the vibes that I was into back then, but it was also the types of messages I wanted to say, the types of stories I wanted to say. Like, a lot of the stories I had were quite immature, or they were very shallow in terms of depth, or the things that I wanted to explore thematically. And now I'm much older than that. Not only are the things that I like nowadays different, but a lot of the messages and the stories I want to tell are also different. But I mean, comparing myself to a high school self versus to my current self who is working in the industry and has 10 years of experience within the industry by now, it's a huge jump. But what I'm trying to say is that even within 6 months or half a year, a lot of your perspective can shift. So imagine starting a project around that time, you're working at for a long time, maybe a year has gone by, and when you look at your project now, it doesn't reflect the things that you want to say with it. It doesn't really reflect what you stand for anymore. You could start going through this mini identity crisis, looking at your project and say, is this something I really want to do? Is this something I really want to continue? Or should I just abandon it? Because it doesn't reflect with whatever I want to say nowadays. I've been reflecting a lot. Maybe I have commitment issues when it comes to personal projects. Maybe there's something there. But one thing that I'm realizing is that I'm afraid of just starting new things just because I'm afraid of just abandoning them and never completing them, or never reaching its fruition for whatever that is. Like, when I start a project, I want to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I want to see that there's a clear date on when it ends. I want to be able to feel like I can retain the original feeling and motivation on why I started the project on the first place. I've been a lot more careful due to me just growing older. I'm already starting to accept that there's so many things that I want to do, but I'm also realizing that a lot of them, I just cannot do them in a single lifetime. And that's something that I've come to accept. And because of that, I've been way more selective on the types of projects that I get myself into, or the types of projects that I started. So I do want to share you guys some of my thoughts on how I'm going about it, and maybe it's food for thought for you guys when you're working on your own passion project. The first thing that I'd recommend anyone to do is to practice writing about the project, journaling about the project before even starting it. When I used to pitch show ideas and feature film ideas to studios, I would prepare a little pitch Bible, and a pitch Bible consists of outline of the story, descriptions of the character, me describing what the show could look like as a finished product. Sometimes I'll write about subject matter and themes I want to explore, why it's important for a project like this to exist. When I think about film ideas, short ideas, or little skits that I want to explore, I would just write a paragraph explaining what happens throughout the short. I think if you're able to write about your project at that very moment, at that time, you can kind of go back and remind yourself why this project was important to you. If you forget and lose motivation. Sometimes when I journal about my own projects, I kind of think about what I want to explore with my projects, why I want to make them, what motivates me, what inspires me to do these projects. It's a good idea to get in a group where you can show your work in progress, and see how some of your peers feel about it, because they can help steer you in the right direction. So let's say you're trying to accomplish something with your work, you show it to them, and they say, I can't see what you're trying to accomplish here. Here's some feedback I can give you. So I think it's good to have that interaction. As human beings, we like to connect with other people. So when we're working on a project, we show it to them and they resonate pretty well with it. They relate to it, they look forward to it. It's kind of inspiring, it's kind of motivating. It kind of gives you a clear sign to keep going forward. One thing I will say is make sure your intentions are clear on the get-go before you get all these feedback, because sometimes too many voices, too many cooks in the kitchen can too drive you away from what you initially want to do with your project. Let's say you have a project that you've been working on for a long time and you've decided to give it up. Then I would say just wrap it up somehow. Like, I had plans for my Dusk Flight short to end a certain way, but I felt like that vision was too ambitious, so I decided to wrap it up in the best way that I could. Just because I couldn't work on it, but at the same time, I would feel awful if I just didn't put it out there. So find a way to wrap it up, and if you want to show it to the world, showcase it in some way or some form. Like, I have a bunch of abandoned side projects, and one project that I've been doing over time is this animated scrapbook where I'm starting to compile all of these animated tests, bits and pieces from these projects into this animated compilation. Just because for these ones, I realized that I just can't touch it anymore, so the best way that I could present it is in just this giant compilation of all of these tests I have floating around. And it'll just be another part of this compilation project. Another thing that you're going to want to consider is that the project might grow with you, and that could be a very beautiful thing. Like, one of my favorite mangas, Berserk, it wasn't that great in the first few issues. It was kind of like edgy and gory and, hardcore, but I think as I read the later comics, it felt like I was growing up with them. There was more nuance in the writing. Let's talk about Evangelion, one of the most influential anime out there. I think the creator Hideaki Anno was suicidal when he was working on it. He decided to end the series with a reboot of movies, and that guy had a much better outlook on life. You can kind of sense that with the characters in the story. Sure, this rebuild series is not the best thing out there, but I personally love it because I was thinking more about what the creator was going through at the time. So you can think about it in a way where the project grows with you as it evolves. That could be a very beautiful thing. You don't want to get to a point where you're growing up and you keep changing your mind about the project, you keep changing things because you're growing up and you have this whole perfectionism thing going on. It's painful abandoning a project. Despite the circumstances of it, it still sucks. You've spent so much time working on this thing, you've put in a lot of work, and you start to realize it's not worth it. There's a lot of pain that comes with it. I think it's just good to be self-aware of your feelings and your thoughts about a project. Whenever you start them, whenever you're working on it, always keep track of that. And maybe keep a good record of it. Anyways, that's all. Bye.
Interested in learning hand-drawn animation or learning how to finish an animated shot from beginning to end? Have a look at the store where you'll find the complete Introduction to 2D Animation video course, tutorials, and other resources. Learn classical animation approaches, drawing, lectures, techniques, and other process videos. Visit the store through the link in the description below.